Software engineer tools. The software engineer needs his right tools just as a carpenter needs his right tools. You're going to use these tools for tens of years, so it's going to be a huge effect if you're going to use the right tools, because using the right tools or even using existing tools which you already have would highly affect your work. So in this episode I'm going to scan some tools, specifically ones that I use almost on a daily basis without even noticing, and I'll also mention some tools that other people use, not me specifically, but as I heard that some people are using them, and as I try them I can see the benefit, but I haven't used them. I found some other tools, I don't prefer them, but I'll mention them as other people are using them. So in general, we have tools as software engineers for manipulating directories, for searching files, for editing files. We have IDEs for creating programs. We have analysis tools for analyzing numbers, for analyzing results. We have the terminal to access machines, and additional tools such as moving windows around. The basic tool is the file. So the basic building blocks for software is the file system. You are using files all the time. This is like the building block. The Z command is the first tool that I want to mention. This is like the autocomplete from web browsing comes into directories. So if you type ZD, it will jump into the recent directory that you had with the word D. The Z tool for the command line. I use specifically the tool named FZF, which is fuzzy search for directories. So when I hit Ctrl R on a terminal, then it would fuzzy search the recent directories or fuzzy search the recent commands that I used, and I find it super helpful. In the command line, I also prefer using the fish shell instead of the ZSH, because it's much more minimalistic. It already bundles in many of the plugins that you need to install into ZSH, and it just does the job. I think it's better, more minimalistic, operations better. There are a few drawbacks in it. It's not fully compatible with Bash, but when I need Bash, I just switch back to Bash. So fish, FZF for fuzzy searching, and Z for autocomplete of directories. Also, don't forget the basic command cd-, where you get back to the recent directory that you have been at. Now, I don't want to mention here one-liners on the Bash, because this is a different story. I want to focus on the tools. As for editors, the main editors that I use is the Vim editor. I find it super helpful for minimalistic edits, searching, not for full-blown programming, but for it in-place editing and searching. And also I enable the VIM plugin on my IDE. Whenever I have the possibility to enable VIM plugin, I just enable it. It's with 1 day of practice, you could get its benefit, and it's really nice. It's really helpful to be able to use more the keyboard and less the mouse. For other editors, I use the Visual Studio Code. I don't use Sublime. Some other people are using them. I do use an editor called Typora for markdown. It's super helpful. You can, once you try it, you will fall in love with it. I don't think you will stop using it. It's just great for markdown. You can type inline markdown, and you see the, instead of splitting the view into a view of the markdown source and the view of the markdown actual formatting, you actually type in the formatting, and you also have the source. It's really a good combination, and you can also create the diagrams. For massive development, I use just the intellij. Nothing beats intellij. I think VS Code, you need to install many plugins. With intellij, you just get the best experience that you could get for programming. In Mac, I use Alfred instead of the Spotlight, where you can find all the clipboard history with Alfred. You can place in Alfred many bookmarks. You can place there many snippets. I actually have a huge library of snippets inside Alfred for programming, for Python, for Java, for shortcuts, whatever I found that I need. Something to remember, I dump it into a shortcut in Alfred and I have it there forever. For the terminal, while I like the native terminal and I try to use it as much as possible, I basically use item 2 due to the multiple windows that you can get there, multiple panes. You can get the multiple panes with Tmax, but then things just start getting too much complex. Sometimes the mouse scroll doesn't work, you need to configure it. I found that I need to invest more time to make Tmax work than the benefit that I get for it, even for the save sessions. I don't really need all this, so I just used item 2 with a split pane. As for the bash, I said I prefer fish than ZSH, so my bash shell is fish. So I want to repeat where, like in the middle, use Z for autocomplete history for directories, FZF for fuzzy search and autocomplete with combination of Ctrl-R for recent commands. Use CD- to get back to the recent directories. For editors, just use Vim, Visual Studio Code, or Sublime as you prefer. I really encourage you to install the freeware Typora and use intellij for programming, for hardcore programming. For Mac, I use Alfred in order to store snippets. I use fman, which is an application that I bought in order to emulate the Total Commander. So I have like a Total Commander also interface with the fman. I use Spectacle for Windows management so that I can quickly move windows in between screens. And for my terminal shell, I use mainly fish and I fall back into bash if I actually need compatibility with bash. Now for management of tasks, I store my backlog in a website named Workflowy. It's very nice, very minimalistic. I really like when the tool is minimalistic so that you don't need to mess with it. It just saves you time. Okay, so Workflowy does a great job in this. It's very minimalistic. You just type in bullets, hierarchical, infinite bullets, your logs. So I just have the dates and my general backlog. I use my actual calendar in order to do time blocking and to plan my day and my week. So my daily tasks are actually on my calendar. I use a real notebook, like an Elfie notebook with a reusable pen. This serves me really great in order to just sketch some things during the day. Git. Knowing Git is especially useful for software engineers. Learn it good, because you are going to use this tool all around. So learn good the command line of Git. The UI is not good enough as the command line. I would really like the UI to be good, but it's not as good as the command line. You have to find the main workflows that you need out of Git and master them. Okay, so just think of the things that you need to do with Git in general. Let's say I'm pulling changes and I want my change to be on top now of all these changes. How do I do this? Find how to do this, then have a specific way to do this. For tasks, in the past I used something called Kanban flow. If you like Kanban, you will love it. It's a really great website, Kanban flow. Today I don't use it because I moved into the calendar and into a Workflowy. As for the command line, I want to stress out that there are a few commands that you must control. The git, the awk, the sed. Okay, once you control and grep. Do some effort in order to control these commands. You don't have to control them at day one. Gradual over the years, gradual learning of these tools would serve you very well. Once you start to control them, you can start doing actual number analysis and file analysis and log analysis and CSV analysis in the command line. There is a great book called Data Science at the Command Line instead of using Excel. So you might say, okay, but I can open Python, open JupyterLab, open Excel and do all this calculation in Excel. What I found is that doing this at the command line, whatever you can do at the command line, then things get super fast. You can just type a command and filter a CSV. While you needed to open Excel, load it into there, or open Jupyter Lab, load the file, write some code. In the command, you just draw the line and this is it, okay? But Excel has its benefit and I use it a lot because when I need to actually see the data, then I find manipulating the data visually with Excel is really great for pivoting and basic visual representation and filtering manipulation of the data. When you do have some more complex work to do with the data, then it's either Excel or Jupyter Notebook. With Jupyter Notebook, you can start manipulating the data, even run some more, AI and models. Jupyter Notebook is the tool for this, for repeating these processes. Excel, I use it as a one-time snapshot. I have some data, I need to do some analysis. I want me to repeat this 10 times. I do this with Excel or with the command line, but if it's a process that needs to be repeated, then a proper programming language that you can Git control and version control and have source code and files and abstractions is more proper. This is where you need to go into Jupyter Notebook or into intellij. Last but not least, about note-taking. Note-taking is best taken, I think, with a tablet. So you either need a Samsung Note or iPad. I think that the two-in-one computers didn't reach yet this place of a good note-taker, or some kind of an e-ink like Onyx books. So you need a stylus. You need a stylus in order to write. A real pen and paper, I don't think will do that good because then you won't be able to highlight, mark sections, read a PDF and highlight things. You cannot do this with pen and paper. You need to print. You don't want this overhead. So having a good tablet like Samsung tablet or iPad or some kind of books, Onyx books ink is a great addition into learning. So with this, we want to wrap up and sum up. A software engineer needs his good tools. Basically, we need tools for file management. We mentioned the Z, the FZF, and the fish command line. He needs to manage his windows on his environment, so we need Alfred in order to save snippets. And Spectacle, we need to manage our tasks. You can store the backlog of the task in Workflow, use your calendar for time blocking, and use a pen and paper notebook in order to do your daily writings. For data analysis, we use Excel, AWK, SED, Git, and all the command line tools together with Jupyter notebooks. And when you need to do some sequence diagrams, or in order to do some just diagrams, then you can just open the PowerPoint or the Draw and do the diagrams there. I think this is really good. If not, then you can use the Draw.io application that you can download for basically free, or use all these text to diagrams tools such as PlantUML. So I think with this, I scanned almost most of the tools that I personally use and like. There are some people that like Emacs and org mode, and other tools such as Sublime. I basically found my own tools to be Visual Studio Code, Typora, IntelliJ, VIM instead of the world of Emacs. Enable the VIM plugin in all your IDEs, and all these tools I don't feel them. I don't feel that I use them. They are part of the way I work, so they don't add any overhead. I think they save me hundreds of hours of time, maybe in the recent few years of digging into something and saving something. So thank you for listening. I think this was very interesting and useful. If you have very interesting tools, please do send them to me. If you think they're, from what you heard here, that I would find them interesting. If you do have some additional notes, then the way maybe to contact me is some kind of comment or talkback, maybe in Apple Podcasts or something like that. Just post there a note and I will read it in the review section. So thank you for listening, and I will see you next time.